Hey folks, this is Kalani. We finally get our first hands-on experience with the new Soulbind system in Shadowlands. From the recent interviews and blog posts, it seems like a lot of players are concerned that there's going to be almost too much to keep up with in Shadowlands. So many new systems that work in different ways. But fear not, we'll break them all down and make sure you understand exactly how they work in the current alpha builds, starting with Soulbinds, because they're one of the most important features in the next expansion. Before we jump in, be sure to pop by our live stream sometime over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST, and we always love chatting with you wonderful folks, and we're always floored to see how many of you are in Twitch chat talking about the latest video and asking questions. Your support means the world to us, so I can't wait to say hello on stream. Alrighty, Soulbinds. First and foremost, what do they look like and how do they work? As you progress through your Covenant story, you will meet 3 key NPCs. They will be different for each Covenant, so if you pick Venthyr, you will be working with very different NPCs when compared to someone who is playing with the Necrolords. Right now, the alpha only has the Venthyr available for testing, so everything you will see will be from the point of view of new Shadowlands vampires. Each of the 3 NPCs will bind their soul to yours, giving you access to a new talent tree of sorts. Each talent tree looks a little different, and you will have different paths you can take. You can only progress through your Soulbind tree along one path. So if you have 2 options at the very top, where you start, you'll have to pick one or the other. Then you work your way down the tree, and as you reach a fork, you will again have to choose which way to go. A Soulbind tree is made up of passive effects, which are the same for absolutely everyone who uses that Soulbind, and then conduits, where you can slot in class-specific bonuses. More on those later. To progress through a Soulbind tree, you will need to earn Renown with your Covenant. At different tiers or ranks of Renown, new rows of these talent trees become available. So, Renown is going to be very important for lots of various systems. We'll cover Renown in more detail in a different video. The prospect of having to choose a path might seem daunting at first. We all hate making mistakes after all, but you can reset these trees for a very minimal cost. Right now it's set at 1 anima. That might be placeholder, but the dev team did specify that resetting these trees will be easy and very cheap. Think about corruption cleansing, that was only 5 corrupted mementos, so resetting will be cheap even if it's not 1 anima, and you can reset them as many times as you want by pressing the little redo button next to activate. That will reset your choices, but it won't reset your conduits if you have any of those locked in. That's going to be important, but again, we'll talk about conduits in just a minute. Honestly, with such an easy respec mechanic, I will probably end up trying out every single trait in these trees just to get a feel for how they play. I'm glad the dev team has decided not to include crazy scaling or increasing costs for resets like they did with Azerite armor. They seem to have learned that lesson, thankfully, so don't worry about picking the wrong trait or talent in these trees. In fact, when we get to reading through them, you'll see that you might actually want to swap these around quite often, depending on what type of content you plan to do for the day. Because you have 3 NPCs and 3 Soulbinds, you also have 3 trees. Each tree is significantly different, they have different passive effects, they have a different number of conduits for each type, and they even have a different layout. You might have to make more choices in one tree when compared to another. The passive effects might suit your DPS spec or tanking spec better, and the number of available conduits is something to consider as well. So how do you swap between these Soulbinds? Quite easily, actually. Just click on the Soulbind on the left and hit activate. That's pretty much all there is to it. You will need to be in a rested area, or use a tome like you would for talents, or be at the Forge of Bonds to swap your Soulbind according to the recent blog post, so one more reason to keep a stack of tomes in your bag at all times. If you aren't at the Forge of Bonds, you can open your expansion info tracker thing. This time around the icon matches your Covenant, but it can still be found on your minimap. Click on that, and then on the bottom left you can see Soulbind powers. Click on that, and you get the same user interface. If you do this remotely out in the world, you can change your current Soulbind by clicking on a different one and hitting the activate button, but you can't make any changes to the Soulbinds. That means you can't reset them, and you can't progress through them by the looks of things, so you can swap Soulbinds out in the world, providing you're in a rested area, or use a tome, but if you want to alter them at all, you will have to come back to your Covenant Sanctum and the Forge of Bonds. So that's more or less how they work and what they look like, but how about some actual info on these traits, Kalani? Are they super powerful? Are they going to be worth caring about? What's the best path to take? Alright, settle down there. Let's check out the current traits for the Venthyr Soulbinds, starting with Nadja. Agent of Chaos. Door of Shadows disorients all nearby enemies at the target location for 8 seconds when you appear. This seems kinda crazy. The Door of Shadows is a Venthyr teleport ability, so disorienting everything at your target location seems pretty powerful, especially in PvP. On the other side we have Fancy Footwork. Door of Shadows increases your movement speed by 80%, decaying over 6 seconds. Nice movement speed boost tied to your teleport. Door of Shadows is baseline a 1-minute cooldown, by the way, which would make this a very short cooldown sprint. Down in the middle we have Friends in Low Places. You loot 20% more infused rubies, and dredgers throughout Revendreth offer you an expanded selection of goods. I wonder if that will include anything rare, or if it will just be for convenience, but hopefully useful nonetheless. On the left here, Exacting Preparation. The benefits of well-fed, flask and weapon enchant effects are increased by 15%. That's a pretty crazy passive throughput bonus which everyone can benefit from. The only thing missing there is potions, but we will see that later. Familiar Predicament. The duration of incoming interrupt, snare and root effects are reduced by 25%. Another one with some strong potential in PvP. Dauntless Duelist. The first enemy you damage in combat is marked as your adversary. You deal 4% more damage to them and they deal 2% less damage to you. You may only have one adversary at a time. Again, potentially powerful for PvP, but also a 4% damage increase against any target is pretty awesome as a passive bonus for PvE. And the last point in this tree, Thrill Seeker. While in combat, you gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds, or 4 stacks on killing an enemy. At 40 stacks, Thrill Seeker is consumed to grant you Euphoria, speeding up everything you do by 20% for 10 seconds. Thrill Seeker decays rapidly while you are not in combat. Oof, that's going to be amazing for almost everyone by the sounds of things. It's a mini lust on an 80-second maximum cooldown, depending on whether you can gain stacks from killing other monsters. That sounds too good to beat, but let's check out the other Soulbinds as well. Theotar the Mad Duke has completely different passive effects and a different layout. We start with Watch the Shoes. Door of Shadows frees you from roots and snares. That's again on a 1-minute cooldown and is already a free teleport up to 35 yards away. Breaking roots and snares is just icing on the cake. Or Leisurely Gait. Door of Shadows is instant cast, but its cooldown is increased by 30 seconds. That would literally give every class in the game an instant 1 minute 30 second cooldown blink in any direction they want, and you can even teleport up or down platforms. The instant cast on this could be insane. Down a little bit we have Refined Palate. The effects of combat potions last 20% to 100% longer. There's your potion bonus, a little RNG sprinkled in here, but you could get double the effectiveness on every potion you use. That's got some strong potential. Soothing Shade. Your spells and abilities have a chance to call Tubbins and Gubbins to your side for 12 seconds, Parasol in hand. Standing in the shaded area grants you 10% mastery. This sounds hilarious, and 10% mastery could be a lot for some classes, but having to stand in the shade might prove to be a little annoying. Token of Appreciation. Grant a shield that absorbs 800 damage to allies who aid you with healing or beneficial magic effects. You will only shield each ally once every 20 seconds. Not a large shield, but this would allow you to give back to the healers who are keeping you alive. A nice support option here. Life of the Party. During the Ember Court, that's the special minigame for the Venthyr Covenant, your guests gain additional happiness for each event completed. When the court concludes, the effects of any decrees bestowed upon you are increased. We would need to learn a lot more about the Ember Court to really understand this one, but it's interesting that you can gain bonuses for the minigames as well. Impeccable Style. Theotar will cover the costs of your transmogrification. Alright, stop the video, that's it. We found the best one. Nothing can top this surely. Free transmog? Now everyone has to go Venthyr. It's literally unavoidable. That might be a bit extreme, but free transmog is pretty awesome. And exquisite ingredients. Theotar will send you an assortment of flavorful herbs when you complete activities that contribute to your Great Vault. Another interesting one, you get some, I guess, herbs for doing things like Mythic Plus. I mean, free raw materials is always nice. And then the last point here is marked as coming soon, so I guess we'll come back to that one in a future build. That does remind me though, this is the first time we're seeing this system in the alpha, so it's bound to change by the time it goes live. Alpha is still alpha after all, everything is subject to change. Just bear that in mind. And then the last Soulbind we have for the Venthyr is General Draven. Anima Infusion. Earning Anima improves your armor's remaining durability. So we can skip transmog costs with the other dude and skip repair costs with this guy. Saving gold has never been this fun. Expedition Leader. Leaving a rested area increases your mounted speed by 10% and your out of combat regeneration by 100%. That lasts for 10 minutes, and completing a world quest refreshes the duration. This will be great for outdoor content, and obviously especially when doing world quests. The combat regen alone would be worth it, but the extra mounted speed is a nice bonus too. Built for war. While you're above 80% health, you gain 1% primary stat every 3 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. If you fall below 50% health, this effect is lost. A nice stat bonus if you stay healthy, so you better bribe those healers to keep you topped off at all times. Superior Tactics. Successfully interrupting an enemy or dispelling an ally increases your critical strike chance by 10% for 10 seconds. This may only occur once every 30 seconds, so interrupting would once again be a sizable DPS increase if you pick this Soulbind and this talent at any rate. Hold Your Ground. Standing still for at least 4 seconds grants you 10% increased stamina and 4% increased healing done. This effect persists for 4 seconds after you start moving. An interesting option here. It would be great for fights where you don't have to move, obviously, and totally pants on fights where you can't stand still. Enduring Gloom. Door of Shadows grants you a shield that absorbs damage equal to 15% of your max health. Lasts for 8 seconds. That's a decent sized shield for a minute cooldown. That could be great for tanks running with the Venthyr. Move as one. When a nearby ally gains temporary increased movement speed, you also gain the benefit up to 30%. We tested this quite a bit and it seemed to trigger off a lot of abilities. You always seem to gain the duration of the effect, but it doesn't go past 30% increased movement speed. But this means your entire raid could benefit from a single rogue using sprint. That is absolutely insane to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some crazy strategies which make use of this Soulbind talent. And the last one we can look at right now, Call to Action. Mirrors of Torment, or whatever your class-specific Covenant spell is, grants 10% versatility to you and 4% versatility to up to 4 nearby allies. That lasts for 15 seconds. If you have a lot of Venthyr characters in a group, this could be an amazing buff for almost your entire group or several members of your raid. There is so much potential here in the Soulbind talents, and that's just the passive abilities. Remember that each Covenant has different Soulbinds and therefore different passive effects. That will mean that players in different Covenants could play in very different ways, and they'll be focusing on different things. But something that every Soulbind will have access to is the Conduit system. Conduits are kind of like gems and essences and relics mashed together. Each conduit will fit into one of 3 slots. We have potency conduits, which will increase your damage or healing throughputs. There's endurance conduits, which are generally defensive oriented, and then finesse conduits, which focus more on utility. If you look at each Soulbind path, there are 7 total conduits. Every Soulbind will have at least 2 conduits of each type, and then one Soulbind will have 3 potency, a different Soulbind will have 3 finesse, and the last Soulbind will have 3 endurance. This could affect which Soulbind you use for which spec, but you also have to take the passive effects into account as well. Different paths through your Soulbind will make use of different conduits, so there is a lot to consider. Apparently the dev team also plans to add stats to the conduits to make them more beneficial and more like gems, but we can't see that in game right now. They are also in a very, very early stage. Only 3 classes, monks, mages and warriors, have access to any conduits whatsoever, and many of them are incomplete, not yet implemented, or just simply don't work. So bear that in mind as we go through these. For testing purposes, we have a vendor here to sell us conduits. I'll hover over each of them in turn to give you an idea of what kinds of bonuses we can expect. Pay attention to which type of conduit they are, because that will affect where you can put them in your trees. Right now, conduits do not stack with each other, but we're not sure if that's actually intended yet. It might be the case that we can stack these when it goes live, or they might prevent stacking to encourage us to use different options. Now, conduits will come from all types of content, kind of like relics did in the past or like essences did in BFA. The only difference is that they will drop as extra loot, and they work in a similar way as gems. You can slot them into the appropriate open sections in your Soulbinds, but you can't take them back out. That means when you slot one in, you basically used up that conduit. If you want to place something else in the same slot, you will destroy the old conduit. That means if you want to get it again because you want to use that conduit, either in a different slot or you want to replace it again because you actually like the old one better, you'll need to farm it again. They've said that conduits that are good for PvE will probably come from PvE, and the ones which are good for PvP will probably come from PvP. So you can probably pick these up from dungeons, raids, battlegrounds, maybe arenas, and maybe even wall quests and outdoor content. Hopefully they're going to be fairly common, because having to farm them over and over and over again to keep replacing them could get tedious very quickly. Personally, I think making each conduit available to reuse in some capacity would serve this system much better. They could make conduits work like essences, where you can earn or loot one type of conduit and then just reuse it as many times as you need to. They could even just allow you to unsocket a conduit, even for a small anima price, to allow you to reuse it in whatever way you see fit. Or they could add in a vendor that lets you buy any conduits that you have previously found, again for a small anima cost. There are options here, and I hope they consider something else that doesn't rely on us farming the same conduit over and over again. If you want to experiment or change your conduits based on encounter type or type of content you want to run, you're maybe going to have to refarm the same conduits over and over and over again, which would be one huge problem I think a lot of players would focus on. I think this system so far could play out in a great way and be a lot of fun to experiment with. This would be the only huge smudge smeared across the entire thing, in my opinion. But it's not the end of the world. It's not all doom and gloom. You may remember that I said resetting your tree does not affect any of your Soulbinds, so we have some wiggle room to play around here. Firstly, you could set up your 3 different Soulbinds to work in different ways. One could be maximum DPS, one could be amazing for your tank setup, and the last one could be for solo content. Or you could do one for single target DPS, one for AoE DPS, and one for your off-spec. You could do one for DPS, one for healing, one for tanking. You get the idea. You kind of have 3 different saves to play around with, but you can actually do more than that. Because your conduits are locked in safe when you reset, you can hop back to your Covenant and save different pathways to reuse for different types of content as well. So maybe you decide that Nazja is best for DPS, and you go all left for one spec and lock in appropriate conduits for that. Then you can come back, reset it all, and go all right for a different spec and lock in different conduits for that. So not only can you have Soulbinds work for different specs, but you can take advantage of the cheap reset to fill in all of the conduits and simply swap around your path to change up how you want to play. We're not completely locked in here, we do have a lot of flexibility, but it would be nice if conduits were just as flexible to make this system truly open. But that's Soulbinds in a nutshell. Hopefully that cleared up some of the questions you may have had, and if you have any queries left over, please do not hesitate to hop in the comments below and I'll try get back to you. Our Twitch stream is also a great place to come ask questions and get answers live, so if it's a really burning important question, that's also an option. Seeing it working on screen instead of just reading about it hopefully helped as well. There are quite a few systems to get through in Shadowlands, but I'll be breaking them all down in a similar way, so if you're still confused, stay tuned for more videos. We'll also look at every other Covenant Soulbinds when they become available to see how different the passive effects will be, but what do you think of Soulbinds from what you've seen so far? Do any of the passive effects stick out as absurdly powerful? If so, which ones? Do you think conduits should be changed to let you use them as many times as you want, or are you okay with them being destroyed whenever you replace one? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to explore the alpha or help us get ready for Shadowlands, you can find us over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST, and watching the stream and coming to say hi is one of the best ways you can support the channel right now. And if you ever wanted to be included in the long list of names at the end of every video, a subscription on Twitch is the easiest way to make that happen. You get a free sub to any Twitch channel with Amazon Prime too, so be sure to take advantage of that. A big thank you to everyone who has subscribed on Twitch already, and to our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, well, now you know how. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.